Here we go. Yes, everything seems to work. We are all live, guys. And if you have just tuned in with us today, I'm having incredible conversation with Mark Bowden. Mark is a best-selling author, #1 body language expert in the world. And I could keep on mentioning a few incredible things about you, Mark. But really, guys, all you have to do once this interview is over, go to the YouTube and check Mark's TED Talk. In my humble opinion, the best one out there. And that's the reason why I'm so hooked into body language. Well, I watched Lie to Me first.
Yep.
That's how I came across your work. And then I was like, this is incredible. I read your books and I watched your content and all that. So thank you, Mark, for being so generous with your time and sharing it with me today.
Well, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me, Raf. I know we were having a little chat before we came live. Great to get to know you and understand you a little bit. Great to be here and with your viewers. And so here I am. What can I do for you, Raf? What's going on?
Wow, I've got a list of things. But you know what? The first question that I'm going to ask, actually, I just decided to feed my curiosity and to see what's your point of view about the Lie to Me movie. How much is a real thing? How much is a scenario based and kind of like exposed and sort of exaggerated thing?
Yeah. So from my point of view, knowing what I know, it is relatively accurate. It's pretty accurate. But as a viewer, probably you miss some of the accuracy that it has. So you'll know that it often deals with what we call micro expressions.
Sure.
And you got a character there who is solving crimes and mysteries with a team using this tool of micro expressions, and often using interview or interrogation to elicit that and to detect deception, I guess would be one way to do it, or certainly emotions and feelings. And one of the kind of, I guess, realities or that people will miss out on is that these nonverbal indicators are used as a signal or a trigger to ask more questions, not as a signal or trigger to say, hey, I know exactly what's going on. The character will be able to say the emotion that's being displayed, but not why that emotion is being displayed. And then they interview more. I also want you to notice that they interview and interrogate and solve things as a team. It's not the individual. It's everybody having a go at looking at the evidence and then getting together and talking about that and coming up with a hypothesis and then testing that hypothesis. So ultimately, what is very accurate about it is it's more likely a show about thinking. And a show about thinking about evidence and people and emotions and relationships and coming to answers by talking in groups around that. Yeah, so that's how I think it is actually very, very accurate.
You know what, Mark? Now that you've elaborated on it, I wished it was a disclaimer ahead of the series. Here's my experience, and I've learned very quickly. I've watched it. I was like, wow, this is incredible. I need to learn more about it. It's such a powerful tool to have. So I read a few books. I started spotted those things that they spot in the movie. And by the time I know, I felt like I'm an expert. And then I realized, luckily, very quickly, it's a harmful thing to label yourself that way, because what I was doing is opposite to what you've said. I was labeling as the thing what I've seen, and that's why they do it and create my own story. And I was like, whoa, this is actually something that can backfire at me. I need to step back and just use it not in the same framework as I've been, because I was so excited about it. Is this something that you've experienced as well? What's my experience with it? Is it the correct one?
Yeah, so what you've experienced there, I think, is okay. Because look, number one, you got excited about it, and that's a great thing. It's great to get excited about stuff. Okay, you know, if you live a life where you're not excited about anything, that's terrible. So you got excited about something, that's great, and you got involved in it. And eventually you realize, okay, a little bit of knowledge is potentially a bad thing. Okay, so you want to try and get more knowledge. If you're really interested in stuff, get more knowledge. But you realized that you were looking at it through a thinner framework, and you needed a wider framework to look at stuff. What I would call a more critical thinking framework, which actually this most recent book that I wrote with Tracy Thompson, this is a book on critical thinking disguised as a book on body language, essentially,
Right.
because body language is really interesting. I love it. You know, the friends that I hang out with on the behavior panel, we all love body language, but it's a route to something else. It's a tool. It's an idea. It's a set of techniques. It's a discipline that is a route to understanding people better and thinking more accurately and better about people. And I think, Raf, you've realized that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that actually puts you in a way more powerful position than other people who maybe haven't realized that, and they're set with their ideas of, well, you know, I've read the book on body language, so if somebody does this, it means that. If A, then B. If C, then D. It's like, yeah, A equals B when it does, and it doesn't when it doesn't. And your job is to work out what is the likelihood, what is the probability of it, of what's happening on here, what's happening, what is most likely given all the information that we can gather and all the ideas that we can gather. So I hope that makes sense to you, Raf, and helps you understand that you're on the right track for sure.
Thank you. Yes, it's great to know that, and it needs to serve me as a reminder, because I could cause a lot of damage and start labeling myself that way. I was like, wow, good, I need to pull back. And so here's the sort of second question that meant to be the first one, actually, talking about your TEDx talk. You've left us with a message at the end that is pretty much in direct opposition to what seems to be very trendy right now, to what it is the advice to the leaders to be authentic. Authenticity is important. You got to be authentic leader. There are books about authentic leadership. You've left us with a message to be not as authentic, to be in anything but indifferent. And so could you just elaborate, like, where does it come from and why it's so important to the audience who haven't seen yet your TEDx? And I want to learn a little bit more about that as well. Why should I be an act?
Yeah. Okay. So the first thing to think about here is that the moment something becomes popular culture, which authenticity is, the idea of authenticity is pop culture. Okay, nothing wrong with that. I love pop. Okay, but the moment something becomes very, very popular, from a critical thinking standpoint, if you want to be really smart, you would be best to think the opposite. I don't say you have to do the opposite, okay? But for some moments in your life, it would be smart and clever to just consider the absolute opposite of what you're thinking and what you're believing, okay? For no other reason than now you know you have. So now you could be even more certain in your idea that authenticity is everything, because you've really explored the antithesis of that. So part of what I was doing with the importance of being inauthentic is, and it's kind of jokey because it's a play on the importance of being earnest. It's a play on the Victorian ideal of being terribly earnest and terribly serious about everything, and you know, Oscar Wilde's frivolous, you know, idea of how do you have more fun and how do you do the opposite of that. So it's the importance of being inauthentic, and it's a play on that idea of you should try and do the opposite. Now, that all aside, is there actually any real intrinsic value in the opposite? Well, there is, if you start to think more deeply maybe about this idea of authenticity. So actually, you know, Raf, what is your, because you'll have looked into this idea of authenticity, what is your description of what authenticity is?
Very good question. Very good question. And it swings and it changes as you think more about that authenticity. Definitely. Initially, I thought you got to be yourself, and it's so vague, but you got to be yourself. You don't have to act. You shouldn't be acting.
Right.
And then I thought, well, there is a few versions of me throughout the day.
Yeah.
If I do this interview with you, I'm so animated,
Right.
nothing like you yet. I'm competing against you. And I'm getting to your level. I have to admit that. And I'm so absorbing what you're doing. But the same Raf isn't if I speak with my son or with my
Yeah.
wife. My wife said to me, Raf, like when I watch your videos, the eyebrows that you do, the flash, the eyebrow flash,
Right.
the thing that you do, you don't communicate that on a daily basis. And then if you're at work as a manager, there are different scenarios that you're behaving differently as well. And so
Right.
the question is like, so what is that, the authentic part of it? And another thing that within my feedback realm that I do, and when I coach managers about the feedback, I said, hey, guys, don't follow the advice of this is the format that you have to use when you share the feedback, because otherwise there's just going to be, you will be so different from what you are, then people will be confused, which is, you're still different, but now that difference is a bit more noticed. And so for
Right.
me, it's about, I'm actually not entirely sure. Maybe you can help me expand it.
Well, okay. So let me help you with that. It's complex, isn't it? And we call it persona complexity, actually, because it's complex. So what we say is you are made up yourself, because you're saying, it's about being yourself. Authenticity is about being yourself. So I go, well, what is the self? How do you know you are yourself? What is how would we know? Well, first of all, let's describe the self. What is the self? Well, some people would say the self is made up of lots of different facets. Let's look at it like a diamond, okay? And it has lots of different facets. And sometimes the facet faces a part of the world, and sometimes it faces away from the world. And when it faces, if a facet of you faces me, it sparkles. But it's a different sparkle from one of the other facets. So just like you say, the RAF I'm getting right now from you is not necessarily the exact RAF that your wife is getting or your son is getting. Well, I'd hope that is so, because I would hope you would have a completely different relationship to your wife and your son than you would with me. I mean, if suddenly we get on and you have the same relationship with me to your son, and I would be worried for you. I'd be like, I don't deserve that. That's odd. Like, what are you doing? There's something up. Okay. And there would be something up, because why are you shining that light on me? That's not our relationship. At the same token, I could go, hey, Raf, why weren't you, when we were doing our interview, why weren't you like how you are with your wife with me? What are you doing? Are you lying to me? You're not trying to show me that? Are you being, and you just go, well, no, because that's not our relationship. And I go, well, which one's the real you? And you'd go, they all are. They're all the real me. Now, here's the really important thing. This is called integration. If the facets don't know that the other facets exist, okay, which is what we'd call integration. If they aren't connected in some way by your mind, if you, Raf, unable to go, there's the me that shows up for the podcast, and there's the facet of me that shows up for the podcast, and the facet of me that shows up for my wife and my son. It's all me. They can be very, very different, but they are still connected. They're not alter egos. They're not split personality, because that's a split personality. They're not connected, and the others don't even know they exist. So one just shows up by accident and takes over. Yeah, if that was happening, that'd be a problem. But you've already explained to me, you're like, I know these things, exist interdependently from, away from each other, but I know they exist. So they're interdependent. They're linked by me. That's good. That's healthy. That's totally fine. And that's what human beings are like. It's complex. It's complex. Complexity theory. Now, here's where it can go wrong. Is when people go, there is a facet of me that I think is better than all the other facets. And I think, and they'll call that's the authentic me, okay? Because they feel better about themselves when they're displaying that facet. It's probably they feel more moral, they feel more comfortable, they feel more linked with the people that around them that they feel have status or important. And they think that they should be that person all the time in every situation. And that should be their whole personality.
Right.
Then it starts to go wrong for them, because that's just not possible. And they stop shining those other facets, and they start being rude, in certain situations, or not assertive enough in other situations, because these other personas, they start suppressing them, and they start turning up the volume on another part of the persona. Anyway, Raf, I hope that kind of makes sense and makes sense to everybody watching out there.
And as you explained it, there's also one reason why it's important to be mindful and not use just the one facet all the time, because the animated me, the body language part of me, that when I'm so passionate when I'm on stage, or like with people like yourself, it can be intimidating in certain circumstances with certain people. And that's not my intention, to intimidate you with my body language, because you'll be like, what's going on here right now? Yeah, it's not everyone is, I think, it's ready to the same level and understands it and connects with it at the same level, right?
Well, let's make it even more extreme, because I know we were having a chat beforehand about those medals at the back there, which you display, because my guess is because you're proud of them, and they tell me something about you. They are valued objects of yours, and so they tell me something about your values. And I found out they're medals to do with the wrestling that you were part of. You're still part of. Fantastic. So there is a part of there is a facet of you that is a wrestler. That would be accurate, wouldn't it? So if we were to meet face to face, would you just quickly start wrestling with me?
No, I wouldn't.
Well, why not? I mean, that's you, isn't it? Why not wrestle me? What stop? Like, are you not being authentic with me?
It's a really good point of very good point of view. Very good. And there's also that challenging part of me as an athlete that I've learned as well as a leader, as a manager. If I'm challenging with everyone and competing directly with everyone to lift everyone up, like I did with my fellow wrestlers, not everyone's ready for it either. And that causes the harm as well, and the relationships deteriorates.
Right, but it would be so easy for you to go, I don't care if they're too challenged by this. I'm going to be the authentic leader, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to wrestling coach them to the top, and if they don't like it, that's just their hard luck. I'm going to be the authentic wrestling me. No, what you've managed to do is go, there are a number of facets of me that could manage things, be a coach and a leader and a manager really well. There are also a number of facets of me that could do the job really badly. Okay. Yeah. Now, what do I want to do? I want to bring forward those facets of me that I think can do the job really well. And do good work, but not every facet will suit every person. So I've got to look at it on a case-by-case basis, see who I'm working with, do my best guess on what part of my ability will work with them really well. Sometimes I don't even need to guess. I can just ask them. I can ask them their values. I can instantly see, I can talk to them about their life. Maybe it turns out, hey, they're a sporting person. They're a really competitive person. And I might go, you know what? It's interesting because, I'm a competitive wrestler, a champion in that area. Sometimes I coach people in a similar way that I would coach wrestling. We're quite competitive. I wonder, give me some feedback. Do you think that would be helpful to you? And they could go, yeah, actually, like that feels like, or they could go, actually, I know I told you I was into competitive golf, but actually I'm not into being led that way around this particular, like you could have a conversation about facets of your personality, facets of your nature that might fit people. Yeah. But what you're doing, Raf, which is good, is that you're understanding you have all of these, and it's not just one authentic you fits all. They're all the facets of the authentic you. And in fact, I would say in Jung's idea of authenticity, and it was Jung that really coined the idea. It was really somebody called Werner Erhard who took it to the popular idea, which many might be a slight corruption I use that word advisedly, corruption with Werner. So I don't mean it in the legal sense of corruption, but it might have been a corruption of the word for it to turn into, you know, the whole you. I think Jung was talking about the links between facets and the link, and each facet knowing the other exists and respecting the other and being able to purposely bring one facet forward. That was what he would have called, I believe, integration. So when people talk about integrity, integrity isn't you're just bringing forward the most moral version of you. Right. And doing what you say. Integrity means you know that you have the most moral version of you, socially moral, and you have the least moral part of you. And to be integrated means both know the other exist. That's integration. That's authenticity, not I'm a good person and I like being good and I'm like being me. Anyway, I hope that kind of explains. That's my point of view. It's other people's point of view as well, who deal with psychology, in-depth psychology. So anyway, if you're interested in that point of view, find out more about that point of view.
Certainly. And to link it with my own experience in my early 20s, I wasn't aware of my facets. It was just the one. It was the athlete, a person, not even athlete-like. It was the athlete in the workplace. Right. Because it worked for me, why it wouldn't for you? And I caused a lot of harm. So it took me a while to figure the things all out. If I had your advice 10 years ago, I wouldn't burn so many bridges and cause so many troubles. So it makes perfect sense because I know that's the way in my experience. And then when I see all the managers, it genuinely does work. So that's wonderful. We spoke about the being different sort of facets and personalities, but there are some underlying universal body language skills, I suppose, that you can really learn and master when you want to gain that credibility and be more trustworthy. And especially like in my career as a manager, I've seen numbers of managers communicating for the first time in front of a small team, 4 or 5 team briefs, some announcement, maybe some all-star workshops or whatever. They're not very confident, they're very stressed. And that credibility goes away because people watch and judge. They don't know how it is to stand in front of others. So what are the ways that we can all learn to really build a solid basic foundation in our body language? So when we're showing up in front of people, we are credible, trustworthy, and confident.
Yeah. So look, let's take that word confidence. Yeah. Confident is from the Latin confides. It just means with trust. So basically, how do you get people to trust you so that, you know, they feel that they can be confident with you, trust you? I'm going to put forward a couple of words for you. Calm and assertive. Calm and assertive. And my guess is that nobody has ever said to you, you should be less calm and assertive. Yeah, maybe less calm in some certain situations, maybe less assertive in certain situations, but calm and assertive at the same time. You know, when there's trouble, when there is threat, when there is a goal to be got as a team, do we not want a leader who is calm and assertive? I think we do. Yeah, and so then it begs the question, how do we do calm and assertive? What is the body language? What is the behavior of calm and assertive? Now, my guess is when I forward those words to everybody watching right now, including you, Raf, you're coming up with some physical ideas and probably from areas in your life that you are physical, whether you are, you know, whether you've worked as a wrestler before, whether you're a dancer, whether you like to go out for a walk with your dog, whether you like a bit of exercise, or whether you like to sit and watch the television, okay, in the screen. My guess is you know what your body does when it's calm and assertive. So actually, Raf, let me, before I give my ideas about the body language of calm and assertive, let me go back to you and say, in your kind of previous world of being, you know, an expert in the physicality of wrestling, okay? If you were coming to an opponent and you wanted to show them that you are calm and assertive, I'm not saying you need to show them that you are strong, because my understanding is, yes, you do need strength, but it's about technique and ability and the thought process. Like there's way more going on than who's strongest. Okay. So, but you want to show them you're calm and assertive. Imagine yourself calm and assertive. Tell me, what is your body doing to be calm and assertive?
So as a wrestler before the competition, I've learned that to show my opponents that I'm calm and in charge and confident, my warm-up wouldn't be as erratic. So I would just, my eye contact and my eyes, how I look side to side wouldn't be just like, this. I wouldn't look down. I would just be straight up and looking side to side, looking like I'm in my own zone, but not like, shrinking down, straight, warming up. Just a seconds before I walk up to the opponent, I would walk up straight, eye contact, handshake. I wouldn't purposely overpower it because that's just a play, but I would match that strength with a person, and I wouldn't be agitated. I just wanted to be kind of as relaxed as possible to show, maintaining that eye contact and seeing like, I'm here, I'm with you, and I'm standing tall in front of you. But I'm not,
Lovely. So, everybody, listening to this, remember what Raf was saying in that description. So it's stuff our mothers taught us, okay? And our dads taught us, and our aunts and uncles that were looking after us, and any leader that we have, got great advice from, they would say things like, just stand that little bit taller, okay? Be purposeful, okay? Give that person a handshake. Don't try and overpower them. Just give them what they're giving. You match that. That thing of being, Raf was talking there about being direct, not indirect, but direct. Yeah. When you were watching Raf moving there, notice the speed of it. Notice when he was saying, I don't want to be, like this. I want to be like this. And notice how open his body language was. And that's my main technique there, Raf, okay? You've given some great ones there. Yeah, my main technique is open body language, especially, and I'm going to come back a bit, especially open palm gestures at exactly navel height. This signal of no tools, no weapons, nothing in my hands, and I'm open at this belly area here, okay? Again, this helps people understand that I'm calm and assertive, and look how direct, simple, symmetrical my gestures are. This is a really important area of the body. In fact, this whole area here, and here and here, but this part immediately. In fact, Raf, you tell me, if we were to wrestle, and I'm not going to wrestle with you because clearly I would be out of my depth. But if you gain control of my center of gravity, here, what's going to happen to me? Am I going to win or lose?
Are you going to lose? Definitely. I'm in advantage. The whole point is to get you out of that balance and to make you feel it and understand that you're not in that control, physical and then emotional afterwards.
Oh, so even if you can even just unbalance my center of gravity, it will do something to my head that will just go, oh, we're in trouble now. We've lost. We're done for. The moment you lose, we've all experienced actually when we lose our balance. You've had that moment where your brain just goes, I don't know what's happening. The moment your center of gravity goes, it just goes, I have no idea what to do about this. And you're trying to trigger that moment of give up in the human mind when it loses power over its own sense of gravity. What I'm doing when I do open palm gestures at exactly navel height is to say, hey, no tools, no weapons, nothing in my hands. Look, I'm open here. There are a couple of really vulnerable points here of blood flow to the arms. And these you never want damaged. And so again, I'm showing you those areas. I'm showing you the belly area, which if this gets damaged, I'm in really, a bad way. You never want, and it's not well protected. The upper chest is protected really well by the ribs. This is not protected, so we have mobility. But also, as you said, Raf, if somebody gains control over this, you are done. Okay, I'm just going, I'm calm and assertive. I don't think there's a threat anywhere. I'm not a threat. This is a safe environment for everybody. That's calm and assertive. Notice the other thing as well, okay? I'm showing you all these joints on my body. I'm showing you all the joints. That's very different from me covering up joints
Yes.
on the body. Again, Raf, tell me about wrestling. What happens if you gain control over one of the joints in my arm or hand?
Again, that's my starting point, like how
Right.
quickly I can do that. First, we move our body against each other to gain that momentum and to gain that control. And I always explain, like I just do with my son now, is that if I lock your elbow, then I'm in more control, right?
Yeah.
The whole battle here is I need to have my both elbows outside of your both elbows, because I have more moves to do so, but you feel now trapped not in control anymore, and you start wiggling around and you're no longer as confident. You're not in the position when you feel in charge anymore. So it is super important.
Perfect. I want you to notice when you were saying, "Hey, I want my limbs around theirs." Notice how you opened up there just that little bit to go, look, this is how I am when I'm in control, when I'm calm and assertive. My guess is when you are wrestling at your top, you're calm and assertive around that person. You're in control of them.
Yes.
My guess is after a while, it must just feel comfortable for them to lose. Because they just want to be controlled at this point, because they've been so out of control trying to fight. At some point, the body just goes, would just be much better to have Raf control this situation and help me with the end result of this. So look, what I want people to see there, what I'm doing there with Raf as a great example is, we're looking at other parts of his life that he's really successful at, that he knows he has success, or certainly he feels that he has success. And
Yes.
we're going, what is similar? What are you trying to achieve? Yeah. And what in this other part of your life is similar? And can we transport some of that success to this part of your life? So it's not a whole new learning skill. And you'll have, listening to this, watching this, you'll have parts of your life that you are very comfortable with, very successful at, and you'll have new things that you're trying to learn. Always look at what you're already doing that's really good and go, how would I borrow from that? Life could be very, very different, but there are things that match up all the way along. What made you successful around something else could very well be transportable to the next thing. So always look out for that.
What I just did, it's such a great point that you've made. Just before we joined here, I just opened LinkedIn Live, not LinkedIn, the stories, and I said, what's your ritual before you're going ahead of maybe the interviews or presentations that you're a little bit nervous, stressed about? And I said, I've got my own ritual that borrows a lot from a wrestling time. And I put my mind and my body in the same position before I sit with you, as if I was walking into the wrestling bound, because my body then feels confident, comfortable. I recognize this situation. My body recognizes that moment and understands you need to get into your zone and just go with it. So that's what helps me from that wrestling time right now and here. So wow, thank you for reassuring me that's the way it is, and it does work, which is
it's a great way to do it, and it's a great way to put you in a first of all, a comfortable position for you, a confident position for you. And then what you want to start doing, which you are doing, is then starting to, now you're confident about you, start to choose the facet of you that approaches that person, that approaches that task that you have, you know, because you want to be confident with the whole of you, good and bad and moral and immoral and effective and ineffective. You want to be comfortable with all of that, so you can decide which part of it you bring to that moment that you have in front of you. And you can be confident enough to see the other person or see the team in front of you and meet them where they are, because you're feeling okay about yourself.
Yes. Wow, very good point. And when you were showing us the body language here, how we should position ourselves and stand in front of our team, the first thing that came to my mind is that those managers shouldn't have the clipboard in their hand. shouldn't have those pens in their hand or objects that they're trying to hide behind, or just grabbing in because they're just fixed in this position and they're trying to, I know you're trying to read maybe from it or something, but you kind of like, you're no longer in this open, straight body language because you have this object in your hand, right?
Yeah. I would agree. Look, if when you're public speaking, when you're leading a team, when you're taking a team into a territory that is difficult work for them, they need a leader. Now, if they need information, email it to them. Like, hand it to them on a piece of paper, like email it to them. If they need information, that is the best way to deliver information. But the best way to deliver leadership and a human relationship is without any obstacles. Yeah. So look, I've got my notepad here and I've got my pen and I could be in front of you and I could be leading the team here. And my obsession right now is, can I get you the right data? Can I get you the right information? Because my idea is the right information will help you. Now I'm going to go, the information doesn't matter. If the information matters, I'm going to send it in an email. What's important is that you feel like you're with a human being who cares for you, who wants a great result for you, and will travel towards that great result with you. And so I have no barrier between you and me in that regard. Now I'm going to go back to the person who is, more importantly, they want to get the data right because they think the information will help. So notice the difference between the two and look at which one that you would rather be led by.
Yes, totally agree. Now, we are now living very much in a world when the leadership happens remotely, virtually.
Yeah.
And I already watched and observed some of your videos, and I've watched you closely during this whole interview. So I've got some ideas what are the differences. But let's just verbalize it. Let us know, please, what and how much we have to adjust our communication style and presentation to elicit that trust, to connect with another human being, because we no longer have that eye contact. Yes, we can do that Zoom performance and practice watching into the lens of the camera and to the screen, absolutely. But what are the other ways that we can all now learn and embrace, because virtual leadership is here to stay in some shape or form? What managers have to do to adjust to it and still elicit that and convey that confident message as they present it?
So you're absolutely right. Eye contact, and that means just, looking straight down the lens, finding a way to place your camera so that it can be, in the middle of the screen that you have, or if you're using a laptop, raise that up so your camera is at eye level. There are a number of videos that I've made about that. Let me give you some more. Leaning in to the lens and getting proximity with the person that you're talking to.
Yes.
And notice how you feel about this person, this leader who's really lent into you and is close with proximity, which means we probably have a more trusted relationship because you're letting me in close. Of course, you're not letting me in close. We're not even in the same, physical location, but your part of your brain doesn't know that. And it just goes, oh, Mark's really close to me right now. We must know each other and trust each other really well. So I lean in close, and notice it's very different from, this person here. Same person, same leader.
Yes.
Yeah? But I'm just more distant from you. Yeah. Look what happens if I create even more distance from you. Let me go over here. Yeah. Same person, same leader. You can even hear the distance.
I'm no longer your priority. I'm just
right.
A guy talks to another one on the couch, far in the distance, because probably just interested in something else. You're right. Yeah.
And people will think, hey, but I'm never going to, sit on a couch in the distance. But there's gradations between the two. And look, I'm taking almost the most extreme gradation I can of how close I can get to the camera with you. So notice I am doing some extremes, but I'm not doing that extreme. I'm doing this extreme. Right. Yeah. So, but you like this extreme, which is why you didn't pick up on it, which is why you as an audience didn't go, why does he keep leaning in so close to the No, you like it. The moment I go back there, you're like, why is he so far away from the camera? But most people are kind of, this. Well, actually, I'll show you what most people are. Let me just see if I can change my camera on this. Hang on, I'll be with you in a second. Let me just change cameras on this. There we go. Am I with you with that new camera shot there, Raf?
Yes, you are with the new one. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Huge
So this is what a lot of meetings look like.
You're looking down at me now.
Yeah. So I have height dominance over you right now, and that's not because I'm choosing to have height dominance. I'm not meaning to be dominant right now. It's just I'm still using my laptop as a laptop and not as a camera. So, but the effect on you is that you don't feel so good around me because I have height dominance. Also, you don't see a context around me as well. It's just white. So your brain doesn't quite know what context I'm in. It's harder for me to get eye contact with this camera as well. I can make it quite instantly better by taking my waste paper basket and taking out the waste paper, sticking my laptop on top of that, and then adjusting this. And instantly you'll notice that's a little bit better, isn't it?
Huge difference. And when you show it, it's like, wow.
Right. So notice, the big differences that you can make simply with that kind of thing. I'm just going to stick my my camera back again to the other camera. I'll disappear for you a bit. There I am back again. There you go. Let me just move this out of the way. Here we go. There.
Nice.
So yeah. So look, notice that the difference that makes. Anybody who's managing, who's leading people virtually, which is going to be a lot of people right now. Try and set up so you can use the camera a little bit more and use the proximity that the camera will give you a little bit more.
Definitely. And I noticed a lot, you're not only leaning, but your hand gesture goes close. Yeah. Every now and then goes there as well. So I'll definitely be practicing that one. But also my guess right now is that in a real life interaction, your hand wouldn't move as close to the same length and level because you just poke me in my eye, right? So
again, poke your eyes and it would cause fight and flight for you.
Yeah.
But your brain is able to work out that this is the illusion of close proximity, but I'm not in your space. So it's happy for the illusion. It's happy for the relationship. I can even point at you and you feel okay because there's enough distance between us. I'm pointing in close proximity. And by the way, yes, you're right. I am bringing my hands into shot because otherwise you would see none of those hands and you wouldn't trust me as much. When you get sufficient data, you default to more positives. Insufficient data, you default to more negatives. So I want to give you more sufficient data about my gestures, show you open palm gestures up here, show you what we call baton gestures, the gestures that conduct and move along to the rhythm of my speech, and also illustrator gestures, the gestures that illustrate for you the things that I might be saying, like high and low. And the moment your brain sees the rhythm of my speech, the moment your brain sees illustrations, from my hands of what I'm talking about, and it sees the open palms, it gets more positive about me and my leadership for you.
Does. It certainly does. Now, Mark, it seemed like you are a really good keynote speaker, right? And it's easy to look at you and think, well, he must be born with it, right? But it's a learnable skill. I'm guessing we all learn that. Where would somebody who really wants to improve those body language and public speaking sphere should start working on in the first place? Are we working on hand gestures? Are we working on tonality? Where do I start?
Yeah, really good question. So I think there are two places to start. Yes, a good place to start is standing up and talking and what your hands are going to do. And why I focus on the hands, because a lot of people, including a lot of communication trainers out there go, what do the hands matter? Why have you picked on this hands thing? The Broca's area, the language part of the brain, and the neocortex that does a whole bunch of the important skills of creating language are directly attached to the hands and the fingers. One of the reasons that we have this big neocortex that can manage to do, first of all, imagery and then language around the imagery and complex things such as metaphors. The only reason we have that neocortex is because, first of all, we were manipulative. Yeah, we have these manis, these hands for manipulation, and there is nothing else on the planet that can do that. Nothing else is ever going to play Chopin, because nothing else can move fingers like this. A chimp has to do that. It isn't able to do that because it doesn't have the big neocortex. Now, so we get very manual, okay? As an evolving species, we get very manual. Huge advantage to that. Now, what are we going to do when we're not using our hands with all this brain power? Imagery, language. So the two things are attached. And so therefore, if you can action your hands, you start to action higher levels of language and imagery. You start to paint the pictures with your hands. You'll start to paint the pictures with your words. And yes, I know language and hand movement can be independent. I know that, but they are not independent in our evolution, and they are not independent in our brain. They are connected. And that's why I go, let's get that body moving, first of all, especially these hands, in order for your brain to get confident about eliciting higher level language skills, so that your speaking is not mundane,
right,
and flat, that it is full of rhythm and texture and repetition and imagery, and you're confident about the rhythm and repetition and imagery and metaphor. You get confident about that because you're confident with your body. Yes, there are many people out there who go, you want to start with the words, go for it, go for your life. I wish you luck. Okay, there's an easier way. There's a way easier way. And that's get the body moving, and the confidence with higher language will come. Now, the next thing to look at is, what are you trying to do? Don't even look at the language yet, okay? Because you don't know what you're going to say. You want to know, what are you trying to achieve by this? What is the object of even getting up and speaking? What do you want those other people to think and feel or do, or all of those things? Think, feel, do. What do you want from them? Once you've worked out that, and you think you've got something that you are passionate about getting them to think, feel, or do, not passionate about your passion. Who cares that you're passionate? It's unimportant. Okay, what's important is, what do you want out of that audience? Because now you're in the business of behavioral change. Because my guess is they're not doing it. They're not thinking it. They're not feeling it. They're not doing it. If they are, shut up, go home. You're useless. They're already doing it. Leave them alone. Okay, leave them alone. They're all fine. They're doing it already. My guess is they're not doing it. So now you're in the business of behavioral change. So now you need the passion, because behavioral change is hard. Changing somebody's behavior is one of the hardest things to do on the planet. So now you need your passion to change their behavior, because it's going to be hard work. Now you got to work out, what do you need to say in order to change that behavior, that thought, that feeling, that thinking in another person? And how are you going to move so that you are confident with that higher level language that you're going to use in order to persuade them, to influence them to change? Because you must persuade them and you must influence them, because otherwise they are not going to do it. They will remain the same. Even if they're in huge pain, they will be happier in the pain than the new behavior and the new land, which is a mystery to them, and therefore potentially more painful. So hope that makes sense. Get that body moving. It's going to make you more confident in a higher level language. Decide on the objective that you want people to change to. Then get your passion and your language around that.
So if we go back to our conversation right at the beginning, we have to accept that there is that version of Ralph, that is version of John or Anna, who is very animated with the body language, needs to practice more of that and bring it out when it's needed to make that behavioral change. And I suppose when you're rehearsing, something that actually helped me, I've realized, is stop rehearsing in your mind. It just doesn't work very well. I just stand up, go in front of my mirror, and I talk it out loud, and I just watch my hands. And after 5 minutes, I no longer have to watch them. They just move.
Yeah.
And as they move, I feel in the zone. And when I feel in the zone, I'm confident, and I can just go with it.
Lovely. I love that.
For me, that way.
Yeah. Yeah. So then you want to take that and you want to practice on real people, like a doctor practices, okay? On real people. You want to take what you've done, in front of the mirror in the bedroom, and you want to start practicing it on real people in everyday conversation and noticing how much more animated can I be? And yes, it'll be strange for some of those people because they'll be like, wow, Raf was really animated today. Starting on purpose to start to show them another facet. They're probably friends and family. They'll forgive you for, or strangers. Strangers are great because you'll probably never meet them again. Okay. And you can see, wow, what happens to their reaction around me. Yeah. Sometimes, with strangers, in the streets of Toronto, I don't do it now because the streets are empty at the moment. And, but that thing in my keynote about friend and enemy and indifference, I would often walk along the streets of Toronto and just practice switching on the behaviors for friend, for benefit. Okay. And do eyebrow raises on people just to practice how many strangers will stop and talk to you and not know why. When you trigger them with the instinct that they know you and they know you well, how effective that nonverbal communication is on their unconscious mind to stop, talk to you. And then slowly over time, they get this realization that they have no idea why they're talking to you and that they don't know you. Suddenly, after a few minutes, they're like, why? How do I know? Like, why do I think I know you? So it's like, you don't. Bye. And off you go.
But on the back of that TED Talk, when you spoke about this eyebrow flash, I was like, okay, so where can I practice? And I'm great. I like the idea, and I'm practicing actively to create my coaching playground out of everything that I do in my casual life, what it seems like normal, mundane routine. You can practice high-level skills that will help me to be in front of 10,000 people. So my goal is to really in front of large audience. And I realized that there's something magnetic about people. Sometimes you meet them, and like you've mentioned, you just don't know why, but you like them. There's something about them. And one thing that I've heard is that when you do the eye contact, try and notice the color of the retina. It just zooms a little bit more for a short second. Like, you don't do it for too long. And I was like, so where can I practice it? Because I'm working in hospitality, so in the past, so I said, okay, when I greet someone all day long, I'll be practicing just the one skill, noticing the eye color of the retina. If you go to the shop and you say thank you for something, notice the eye color of the eyes and do the flash, the eyebrow flash.
Nice.
For a month, 2 or 3, by the time it's part of you, and when you meet someone, you're excited about it. You can it is just there, and it creates that different response from others. You gain and you're building that credibility, right?
Well, I love what you've done there, and my guess is, part of this is about your, what you've been successful at before as well, and knowing how to train. And knowing that training is not doing everything at once. It's picking something and working the skill and getting the feedback. So that the brain starts to go, I'm going to just do this naturally, unconsciously rather than naturally. I'm just going to do this unconsciously because it's now making a lot of sense to me. I'm getting great feedback on this. And you pick one thing. So I would, challenge everybody who's watching and listening right now is that is the best way to train, in my mind. I don't know what you think, Raf, but to pick on one thing, work it, really enjoy it. Master that, get it in the unconscious mind, and then start on something. One skill mastered well is better than 10 with no mastery of it. The person with one skill will beat you every time.
Absolutely.
Than your 10 badly executed.
We're about to wrap up. I'll just stay with that sport analogy. The way I was explaining when I coach managers, exactly about what you just said, is imagine yourself that most of us by the age of 15 play the same amount of football than a professional football player. He earns £100,000 a week. I don't. And the difference is I was kicking the ball for 5 hours a day, He practiced his wicked foot for 3 hours, for instance, or his headers or head headers for 3 hours a day. That's the difference. You pick one, you stay with it for months, and it becomes your natural part of you. And by the time you know, your body language is magnetic. You're really bringing people into yourself as you're communicating without thinking, planning, because it becomes part of you, right? It's your habit, how you communicate.
And I want to add one, before we finish up, I want to add one more thing to that. Yes, there is, the hours and the concentration. And I think then there is finding a good teacher and a good coach. Okay. When you notice the people who've done the hours, and then the people who've done the hours on the skills, and then they find a great teacher and a great coach, that's because there are people who know how to do what you want to be able to do,
for sure.
and they're good at teaching it. Yeah. So for anybody out there, if you see somebody out there who you think, I could learn something, or you're already learning from them, like Raf here, and you go, I always get a great experience, from him. Like, stick with it, really listen, do what they're saying, okay? And that will really take your skills up. Yes, you absolutely have to do the hours, okay? But there are people who know what to do with those hours that will best give you the effect, okay? Because there's stuff you could do with your hours that won't give you the same effect than if you pick the right tools to work on. Anyway, that's my last piece of advice around that.
So I do something that might be perceived a little bit cheeky. You've mentioned there's somebody who does things a little bit better than you. We spoke for about an hour. I had my microphone in front of me. I realized it's an obstacle to really be full of myself, so I need to adjust to it. What's the one thing I could work? What would you suggest me to work on my body language or tonality or anything in order to get a little bit closer to your level?
Yeah, I would say I would like to see, in this context, I would like to see you even closer to the lens. Okay? I'd like to see you, I'd like to see even more of you, even closer to the lens, and some of your gestures coming a little bit more out towards me. Yeah, so they contact me sometimes rather than out. I think you're doing great. And I think the barrier, you've noticed something about that barrier there of the microphone is that often people, we see lots, in this culture of the podcast or the video cast, we often see the microphone as the icon of, I really know what I'm doing. Look at the size of my microphone. Look, I've got a proper big microphone. It's like, it doesn't help me understand that what you're doing. So that's the advice I'd give you is can you come even more forward to your audience?
Yes. So Monday, my next live interview with Derek Gaunt will be changing the position of my mic, bringing the camera a little bit closer, position myself like you do, and it will take me a few takes. I'll definitely get there and I will improve that, and I can promise it will happen and I will master it eventually. So thank you very much for that advice. There is literally one last question that I always ask. It's a very short one, and that is, who is the best coach leader? So, who is the best coach leader that you worked for or with in your career?
Wow. Okay. Okay. There's a theatre director that I work with called Glenn Wolford. It's fantastic. She's brilliant. She's a genius. One of the most genius things I saw her ever do, and she would do this on every piece of work that we do. She'd get the whole team in a circle. Okay. It'd be a new team every time. Yeah, pretty much. New team comes together to work on something. She would go around the circle and she'd say, okay, this is this person. Here's why I've picked them to work on this, because they are brilliant at X, Y, and Z. Okay. Here's Mark. This is why Mark is on the team, because he is genius at X and Y. Okay. She would go round and tell the whole team why this person was chosen, and also telling you, this is why you're chosen. It meant that the whole team could start with a sense of, okay, I know why I'm here. Everybody else knows why they're here. We now don't need to prove anything to anybody. We can get straight on with it. Does that make sense, Raf?
It makes perfect sense. Just imagine if a manager does it every time when there's a new hire coming in that way. And it's such a beautiful way and powerful way to leave this episode with. Thank you very much, Mark, for being your time. I'll leave all the links relevant to you and where we can find more about you, buy your books, consume your content in the description underneath of the podcast when it's launched. Once again, thanks a lot for being today with me.
Cheers, Raf.